Slater, Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Happy Monday. We got a busy week today, a ton to do, or busy week this week, a ton to do right now. We're going to talk about court packing coming up, how the media and the Democrats, shockingly, overnight, all came out with the exact same point about court packing. So we'll talk about that coming up. We'll also talk about Amy Barrett and how she disproves 5 lies that feminists and the left have told women for decades now, and this is why they hate her so much. You'll see the hatred on display this week, but why? Where does it come from? We'll talk about that coming up. So the hearing is Monday through Thursday this week, starts at 9 o'clock Eastern each day. Today, each of the 22 senators gets 10 minutes to do their grandstanding. Then the 2 senators from Indiana, where Barrett lives, and the former Notre Dame Law School dean are going to talk for 5 minutes about how she's so great, and then she's going to give her opening statement. That's all today. Tuesday, the questioning begins. Each senator gets 20 minutes, and then they're going to do another round on Wednesday, and they each get 10 more minutes. And then Thursday, they're bringing in testimony from outside witnesses, and I guess that's like her grade school classmates are going to be traipsed in and asked if she's ever said a swear word or something. I don't know how the Dems are going to try to Kavanaugh her, but we'll find out soon enough. So that's the schedule for the week. But first, I want to talk about this as a little background to what we're going to see. S.G. Shea wrote this great article called Why Marxists Frequently Target Women as Their Strategy for Spreading Communism. Why Marxists target women as their strategy for spreading communism. So the story starts out with Clara Zetkin. Clara Zetkin, as seen here, she was a politician in Germany in the 20s. She was member of the Communist Party, like the official Communist Party. She was in the Reichstag, like our Congress, from 1920 to 1933, right? So she's an influential person. She wrote a book, and she has a chapter in there about a conversation she had with Lenin. Lenin was the head of the Soviet government from 1917 to 1924. So I just want to be clear, like, I'm not making this up. That's like the first, I feel like whenever I do segments like this, people are like, you're just making up, these are actual quotes from books, from real people. And like, not just like random little insignificant people. This is Lenin. All right, it's like the guy. All right, here's what he said. He said, unless millions of women are with us, we cannot exercise the proletarian dictatorship, cannot construct on communist lines. We must find our way to them, women. We must study and try to find that way. All right, so it's Lenin saying we got to get to women. Why women? Because women are the arbiters of morality. We talk about this from time to time. Maybe it's been a while since we had it. Usually when we talk about it, it comes up in like a dating sense. There was some school somewhere, and they had this quote on the wall in the hallway. Do you remember this? And the quote was, they had to take it down. They got in trouble. The quote was something like, men or women, if you want men to treat you right, treat yourselves right. It was something like that, right? Like present yourself properly. And it got taken down because people were complaining that it was like blaming women or blaming the girls for being harassed or talked down to or whatever. And whatever the quote was, and I'll find it here during the break, I'll come back with it. It was right, right? Women dictate how men act. The women are in charge of this. If women set high standards, men will meet those standards. If women set low standards, men will meet those standards. Women have a huge, I don't even want to say influence, it's like the control of a society's culture. Why? Because women play the crucial role of raising children and keeping the family unit together. And the Marxists knew this. They knew that if you control women, then you control the kids and the family and the man. And the left has attacked women and womanhood in many different ways. First, by telling women to be afraid of men. Like today, I'm going back in the 1920s here. Like today, women, the left is attacking women and womanhood, telling women they need to be afraid of men. All men are going to rape you. 1 in 5 women are raped on college campuses. Everyone's being raped all the time. Convincing women not to have children because abortion is female empowerment. Eliminating all traditional gender roles and just the concept even of a nuclear family, right? Ultimately getting more women and kids dependent on government welfare. Abortion was supported by communists. Well, first it was supported by men, in the sexual revolution because they wanted to have sex without consequences. It was supported ultimately by the feminists because they wanted to work and not have kids, or I should say having kids gets in the way of women reaching their full potential and fulfillment in the workplace. And abortion was supported by communists so that they could use it as a bargaining chip. Right? So the communists would say, well, we need abortion until we have the government able to provide everything for every child from birth. So until we can do that, we have to, kill kids. And you still hear that today. You still hear people say, oh, Slater, like, you're not really pro-life because you want kids to be born into poor families and then not give them welfare. So you're just pro-birth. You're not really pro-life. That's an argument, and that's an old communist argument. They've been making it for 100 years. Leon Trotsky, right, Marxist, he said, the birth of a child is for many women a serious menace to their position. The birth of a child is for many women a serious menace to their position. Only a Marxist could make the birth of a child a serious menace, as opposed to like the most amazing thing that's ever possible. It said it's a serious menace. Oh, I tweeted this out this morning. I could not think of this Obama quote. And I tweeted it out, and right away everyone came back, and it was wonderful. Here it is. I remember Obama saying something like this at some town hall event sometime. I couldn't quite think of it. And someone wrote back, it was like, oh yeah, it was Obama said he wouldn't want his daughter punished with a baby. Remember that line? I put the video on our Twitter, Slater Radio on Twitter. I wouldn't want my daughters punished with a baby. Like, who could even think that? This is more Trotsky here. The revolution, this is Leon Trotsky, the revolution made a heroic effort to destroy the so-called family hearth, that archaic, stuffy, and stagnant institution in which the women of the toiling classes performs galley labor from childhood to death. Right? So again, I love how the communist empowerment of women was to remove her from the slavery of the home and put her into the beautiful, fulfilling surroundings of the factory. Now you're liberated. We see a lot of this still today. Oh, you're just a mother. And so many women are like ashamed. They're like, yeah, I stay at home now, but just for now, like I'm gonna go back to work soon. But yeah, I'm just a mom. Oh, that is a lie from the pit of hell. That is a lie from the mouth of Satan, or from the mouth of a Marxist. You're just a mother. Are you kidding? It is the highest calling imaginable. It is a gift from God that he trusted you with this soul that he created. And it is our mission to treat it as a task worthy of a life's work. See the difference? It could be one or the other. It could either be, great galley labor, or it could be like, oh, this is incredible. Thank you, God. So the point is, Marxists and this progressive worldview, they seek to transform women from nurturing moral leaders of the family and therefore of society into, so you get that visual, right? So you have like the woman and all of her amazingness and uniqueness and beautifulness of the nurturing moral leader of the home and the country. And they want to turn women instead into scared, overworked, overburdened, yet somehow liberated people whose identity is in nothing but sex and work. And then, of course, whose ultimate loyalty is to the state, because the state's now the true provider of all of her needs. See the difference between those two things? Now, as we'll talk about in the next segment, Amy Barrett just destroys all those lies. I'll explain that in great detail coming up here, but that's why the left hates her so much. And it's such a sad story what our culture and the left and communists, Marxists have said to women. It's so sad. They've been super effective at it. Last week we talked about Abraham Lincoln because Kamala Harris brought him up during the debate about court packing and stuff like that. So I'm on a bit of a Lincoln kick. But when I think of mothers, I think of Abraham Lincoln And I think of his mom reading the Bible to him by the fireplace, which was done all the time. This fireplace at Lincoln's cabin was a magical place. Like, someone should write a book from the perspective of Lincoln's fireplace. This is where he read stories of Daniel Boone and Robinson Crusoe and Pilgrim's Progress, and he read Aesop's Fables, and he read all about George Washington's life, and of course he read the Bible there. His mothers, and I'll get to that in a second, they would read to him and tell him stories, Bible stories every day. And on Sundays, on the Sabbath, half the day, they would read scripture aloud to each other, half the day. Not 30 minutes, not, can we hurry up and get through this sermon? One half of the day, every Sunday, they would just read scripture to each other. Lincoln had an amazing line. He said, the fundamental truths reported in the four Gospels as from the lips of Jesus Christ that I first heard from the lips of my mother are settled and fixed moral precepts with me. Isn't that an amazing line? The fundamental truth is reported in the four Gospels as from the lips of Jesus Christ that I first heard from the lips of my mother are settled and fixed moral precepts with me. So his birth mother died when he was 9. She drank poisoned milk. What? So she instilled this love of reading and virtue in Abraham when he was a boy. And then his dad married another woman just like a year or so later, a little over a year later. And this woman whipped everyone into shape, right? Like Abraham was living in dirt floors. Like he's like a feral child. He's living in total filth. So this woman comes in, turns the whole home around, and they loved each other, right? He said later in life that she, his new mom, or adopted mom or stepmom or whatever, had been the best friend in the world, and no son could love a mother more than I loved her. Amazing, right? And same thing, she loved reading, and she loved raising Abraham as her own. No doubt about it, Abraham Lincoln became the man he was because of his two mothers. Is there any wonder why the left has focused so much of their attention on women? We're going to talk more about Barrett coming up in the next segment. We're 22 days away from the election. I still believe that it's going to be an ugly time. I own gold for a few reasons. First of all, check out this fact. All the gold reserves in the world, right? So think about this. All the gold that's ever been mined ever. You go back thousands of years. You melt it all down. It could fit in a tennis court less than 10 meters high. So you melt it down into like a cube. It'd be a tennis court. It's not big. 10 meters high. That's all the gold ever. Isn't that amazing? That's not a lot. And you can't print more of it like our federal government's doing nonstop all the time. The more you study fiat currency, the more you study about our monetary policy in America, it's just so obvious you have to diversify and get some gold. But we're talking $2 trillion stimulus package on top of the trillions of dollars of stimulus package we've already passed during just even COVID. And I think the economy is the ramifications of what we've done with COVID, I don't even think they've been seen yet. And it's going to get way worse. Every business owner I talk to, they're like, oh, like next year is going to be way, way worse. And then with the election, when it all hits the fan, I'm just telling you what I did. It's good to have something in your possession that you can use. Call my guys, Patriot Gold Group. They have all the highest ratings. I'm not going to waste your time with that, but you'll know. You're working directly with the owners, and you understand what that means when you give them a call. They also have no fees for life. All right, so you can ask them about that too. Still time, plenty of time to get gold. Well, I shouldn't say plenty of time. You got 22 days, but get that gold in your hand right now. It's going to be a rough few months in America. Own gold. Free Investor's Guide, 1-800-798-4260. See the number right there, 1-800-798-4260. Give them a call. Patriot Gold Group. We're coming up. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. So we just talked about why the Marxists, communists have been attacking the left, or excuse me, attacking women and mothers for 100 plus years now. And you're going to see that this week with the hearings against, or with Amy Barrett, and you're going to really see the left's hatred of her. And it's not so much her as much as what she represents here, because she disproves so many lies from the feminist movement and from the left. Read a great article from Joy Pullman. It's called "The Left Hates Amy Barrett because she disproves all their lies about women." Now, they will not go after her personally. She's unassailable, as you'll see today. And the Democrats, I think, know, we'll see. I think they know that anytime they attack her, it's going to be seen as an attack on suburban Christian women, right, moms. But they still hate her. This is Joy Pullman. Barrett has done exactly what the left's anti-women feminist narrative says is impossible. Obtaining a high-octane education while maintaining religious devotion, marrying in her 20s, and choosing both a big family and a big career. So I got 5 lies that that Amy Barrett disproves. The first is that women need abortion to succeed. Barrett did not need abortion to save her from unwanted pregnancies. Barrett did not view children as an obstacle to pursuing her dreams. She gladly had a big family and then had 5 herself and then adopted 2 more. That's the first lie. Second lie, children make you unhappy. The internet is full of parents just whining all the time about their children. It's unbelievable. I just see these people whining. It's like, well, don't have any. And the weirdest thing is when I see people whining, people I know whining about their kids, and then they have another one. It's like, what are you doing? Quit complaining about how your kids are brats and you're so tired and the house is a mess. Get your life together and stop calling your kids brats when you seem to be the problem here. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. Amy Barrett, you'll see, she is a woman, a mother full of joy. She has a huge family and she's full of joy about it. And the feminists hate that. Barrett at the Rose Garden massacre, she said, "Our children are my greatest joy." And you contrast that with the left's narrative that children are disruptive and they'll ruin your life. Third lie, women must repress their fertility in order to succeed. Politico wrote an article the other day about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and how Ruth Bader Ginsburg viewed abortion rights as central to sexual equality. And that's how the feminists, that's how, we did this a couple weeks ago. That's how abortion, which was a sexual revolution thing and not a feminist thing, that's how they ultimately converged. Is that in order to be, the feminists thought that in order to be successful in life, you have to not to have kids. This is Joy. The left's solution to this has been to stamp out women's physical uniqueness, to chemically or surgically neuter our capacity to cultivate human life. Their way to make men and women equal is to eliminate femaleness. And we've said this many, many times before, many different ways, that the left tries to make men more like women and women more like men. And again, she dispels that lie. Fourth lie, women don't need men. All right, we know that Black Lives Matter is against the heteronormative family, the nuclear family structure. It was Gloria Steinem who said a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Right? The modern world today pits the genders against each other, while Christianity recognizes that genders, men and women, are different and interdependent by design. This is Barrett at the Rose Garden ceremony. She said, "For 21 years, my husband has asked me every single morning what he can do for me that day. And though I almost always say nothing, he still finds a way to take things off my plate. And that's not because he has a lot of free time. He has a busy law practice. It's because he is a superb and generous husband, and I'm very fortunate." They're a team. They're a team. Fifth lie, Christianity oppresses women. And it's just the whole thing that women are oppressed in general in our society. So to the left, everyone has to be a victim, right? And women are victims. So they have to somehow make Christianity an oppressive thing against women, including this woman who is nominated to the highest court in the country. I mean, that's some bigotry that those Christian men are keeping her in, encouraging her and loving her as she goes on to be a professor and a judge and a Supreme Court justice. Oh, those Christian men really keeping her down. So we got those 5 lies that Amy Barrett is the opposite of. Again, women need abortion to succeed. Second lie is children make you unhappy. Third lie is women must repress their fertility to succeed. Fourth lie is women don't need men. And the fifth lie is Christianity oppresses women. Let me do those again. First, women need abortion to succeed. Second, children make you unhappy. It's a lie. Third, women must repress their fertility to succeed. Fourth, women don't need men. Fourth lie. And the fifth lie is Christianity oppresses women. Now, the left's lies break down pretty quickly all the time. Right? They all do. I saw this great interview with, I don't know this guy, Dr. Everett Piper. He's and I'm going to learn more about him. He's the president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University. And he did an interview with Dave Rubin, I think it was like a year or so ago. And Dave Rubin asked him, he said, what do you say to well-intentioned progressives? Not hacks, but what do you say to well-intentioned progressives to help them see the light? And he said, oh, you ask questions. He said, Jesus never argued with anyone. Jesus could have crushed anyone in any debate, right? But he never argued. What did he do? He asked questions. Which one of you wants to throw the first stone? Whose face is on this coin? He would just ask the question, and then he would stay silent, and he would let the worldview of his adversary just implode in front of him. He goes on here.
So what do you do with the postmodern, the progressive question from a 20-year-old? Well, can you tolerate my intolerance? Do you hate hateful people? Are you sure that nothing is sure? Do you know that nothing can be known, and are you absolutely confident there are no absolutes? And then just shut up and listen. They don't have an answer. They saw off the branch upon which they sit, and it comes tumbling down. And it's at that point, I think you can rebuild the argument with some common sense rather than this nihilism and nonsense, literal nonsense, because it makes no sense for you or me to look an adversary in the eye and say, I can't tolerate your intolerance. It makes you the very thing that you find intolerable.
Yeah.
It's self-refuting.
These lies are so easy to refute, and you're going to see it in the flesh all week long. It's going to be a beautiful thing. Can't wait. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Slater Crusaders, the media, they're very, very tricky. They're very good. I'm not even mad when they do stuff like this. And I don't blame people for getting tricked either. Court packing. Most people don't know what court packing is. Like when have you ever used, no one uses that on a daily basis. The only time I remember court packing is from 9th grade history class. You get a thick textbook and there's one little section on court packing here, right? It's about FDR court packing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, everyone's talking about court packing and asking Biden if he's going to pack the court. And I guarantee the Democrats did a poll, and they found out that most people don't know what that means. And that's why we spend a lot of time on this show, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page with what it is, where it comes from. So the very, very short of it is, the Constitution does not say how many justices must be on the Supreme Court. It says that it's up, Congress decides. And there's been as few as 5 justices on the Supreme Court and as many as 10. But there's been 9 justices since 1869. So the Dems want to pack the court. What that means is add to the number of justices on the court. So they want to make it 12 justices or 15 justices or whatever. And the reason they want to do that is because when Amy Barrett is confirmed by the Senate, then there's going to be 6 conservative justices and 3 liberal justices. So the Democrats want to add people to the court to dilute the influence of Trump's nominees, right? If we have 15 justices and they're all appointed by Biden and a Democratic Senate, then and then the Trump's nominees will be of less significance. Make sense? This is also why on Friday's special, we spent a lot of time talking about what are the Democrats' chance to take back the Senate. And the short of that is possibly. I wouldn't say probably, it depends, but possibly. Anyway, so the question is, if the Democrats win the White House and the Senate, will they pack the court? Let me ask you this question first. Do you think that if the Democrats had the White House and the Senate today, 22 days away from the election, do you think for 1 second they would not add their justice to the court? Of course they would. So all this grandstanding you're going to see these next few days of Democrats talking about how outrageous this is, blah, blah, blah. Do you think for 1 second, if they were in power, they'd be like, you know what? I think the right thing to do is to wait. I think we should let the Republicans have a chance. We should let the Republicans see if they could win the White House, see if they could win the Senate, and we'll see what happens then. I think that's the right thing to do. Oh, get out of here. Of course they would vote on a nominee, and we can only assume that, of course, they would pack the court if they had the power. They sure won't say they won't. So Trump asked Biden if he'll pack the court in the debate, and he was on the ropes, and Chris Wallace bailed him out, said, oh, we got to move on to other topics, gentlemen. The other day, Biden said, you will know my opinion on court packing when the election is over. What? It's like Pelosi's got to pass it to find out what's in it, right? Biden was asked this by a local reporter in Nevada.
But this is the number one thing that I've been asked about from viewers in the past couple of days.
Well, you've been asked by the viewers who are probably Republicans who don't want me continuing to talk about what they're doing to the court right now.
Well, sir, don't the voters deserve to know
No,
where
they
you
don't.
stand?
I'm not going to play his game.
No, they don't deserve to know. Voters don't deserve to know what Biden's going to do with one of the branches of government, okay? So the media is, of course, covering for him. This is the Washington Post. Check out this headline here. Republicans continue attacking Biden-Harris over hypothetical court packing question. It's a silly hypothetical, you Republicans. Isn't every question, what are you going to do when you're president? Isn't every single one of those questions hypothetical? Right? Oh, Republicans continue to attack Biden. That's another Republicans pounce thing, right? Whenever a Republican does a bad thing, the story's about the Republican doing the bad thing. Whenever a Democrat does a bad thing, the story's about how Republicans pounce on the Democrats. So same thing. Republicans are attacking Biden on hypothetical Second Amendment question or hypothetical tax-raising questions or hypothetical health care. They're all hypothetical. So is this the new standard now? Because if this is the standard, then we can never ask any presidential candidate anything. Because it's just a hypothetical. Isn't that amazing? So just getting brushed aside by the media. Here's the real whammy of it, though. Biden was asked on Saturday, and I'd play the audio here, but he's standing right next to an airplane jet, like an airplane engine. It's like right next to him. It was clearly done on purpose because there's no reason to stand that close to the engine. But Biden said that what Republicans are doing right now, like this week, what we're watching, what they're doing is unconstitutional. No, it's not. And Jake Tapper? That sounded wrong, is that right? Jake Tapper, yeah, for some reason that sounded wrong. Jake Tapper, to his credit, pressed a Biden surrogate on this. And he kept asking, like, it's not unconstitutional. And the lady'd be like, oh, well, the polls say that a majority of American people think we should, which is, like, isn't even true. But a majority of American people think, therefore, and Tapper's like, well, that's not unconstitutional. Just because you don't like it doesn't make it unconstitutional. But here's what the media is really doing. Lockstep with Biden, overnight, everyone magically came up with the exact same talking point. Biden said the only court packing going on right now is going on with Republicans packing the court. So the claim from Biden and the media is that it's the Republicans who are packing the court. What? Here's Dick Durbin.
I can tell you that we're getting this question. It's a common question being asked because American people have watched the Republicans pack in the court over the last 3.5 years, and they brag about it. They've taken every vacancy and filled it.
What? Oh, there's the end. Did you catch that part? So he's saying that they changed the definition of court packing. All right, so court packing means adding more numbers to the court. But they've redefined it, because most people don't know what it is, they've redefined it to filling vacancies. That's not the same as, that's not court packing. You with me? They've redefined court packing to filling vacancies. Well, of course they fill vacancies. Like why, I don't understand the argument. Like you wouldn't fill a vacancy? This is Sam Berger. He's a former senior policy advisor in the Obama White House. He wrote, "Conservatives packing the court in one chart." Right? So you see the blue line on the right. The blue line is like Democrats packing the court, and the red is Republicans packing the court. But again, these are vacancies. That's not people added to the court. Those are filled vacancies. That's not court packing. But the Dems have changed the definition, and the media is going along with it very nicely. This is a AP story. All right, so this is about the Senate race in Montana. So listen to this line here. This is so interesting. And you're going to hear stuff like this all week. Bullock said, that he's the Democrat, that if Coney Barrett was confirmed, he would be open to measures to depoliticize the court, including adding judges to the bench. So it's Republicans who have been packing it by filling the vacancies of it. And Democrats, they merely want to depoliticize it, right? The Republicans are the evil people they're the ones packing the court. It's unbelievable, it's an outrage, really. The Republicans packing the court all these years. Vote for Democrats, because we want to depoliticize the courts. And of course, their definition of depoliticizing is adding people to it, is actually packing it. See how that works? Here's Jesse Kelly this weekend. He said, the Democrat media, he's like, I'm not even mad at them changing the words. He said, the Democrat Media Alliance is in such control of the culture, they can and do create their own reality. That's why you don't lose the culture war. This is just how it is now. So what do we do? Well, short term, you don't let them win the next election. And I think maybe Trump should come out. Why not? Trump should come out today and say, vote for me and I'll pack the court. Watch the Democrats be, oh, it's outrage. Coming up next, Professor VIncent Raccaniello. We'll talk a little bit about just the vaccines. It's an unbelievable, it's a miracle how the vaccines have developed so quickly, so many so quickly. Nothing like it's ever been done before. And Trump, the task force, all this stuff will never get any credit for this incredible thing that's happening before our eyes. We'll talk about that coming up. True story. Mike Slater, by the way. Hey, Slater Crusaders, look forward to it all weekend, mostly because people all week ask me questions about COVID, and I was like, I don't know, but we're going to talk to the professor coming up, Professor VIncent Raccaniello. He's the professor of virology at Columbia University, and you have to watch his podcast. It's called This Week in Virology, and you can get that at microbe.tv. Professor, hello, sir.
Good morning.
And to you, we got to talk about Regeneron. What do we know? They have to be pretty happy with how things went. My mind is blown when you told us last week that they only did that one trial with 275 people. So it's very possible that the president of the United States was the 276th person to take this treatment. Is that that's amazing?
Yeah, it's amazing. And I asked my clinical consultant what he thought, and he said he was totally okay giving the president that monoclonal. So wow. It looks pretty good.
Let's talk about this vaccine in general. I'm blown away with where we are on this vaccine development. Have you ever seen or read anything like this?
No, this is unprecedented. The rate at which we're making vaccines, and there are two kinds of vaccines that we're making, right? There's the active vaccines where they inject like an mRNA or a virus into you, and passive vaccines, which is what Regeneron has, monoclonals. They give you the products of the immune response. We've never done it this quickly. Just for some perspective, we still don't have an AIDS vaccine, and we're working since 1985. polio vaccine took 50 years. Most vaccines take 10 years or so to do it. And this is less than a year. We have candidates and people. And everyone should appreciate this is because science has been really supported in the U.S. and has got everything to the point where we can do this. And I think we should really be in appreciation of that because it's really unprecedented that we can make this so quickly.
How many people do you think are working on that worldwide in all the different pharmaceutical companies and laboratories?
Probably thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands of people. The universities have done a lot of the research that led to this. And now, of course, to actually make the vaccine, we hand it to the pharmaceutical companies. And those companies, most of them have just started in January because you don't make a product unless there's a market for it, right? The companies exist because they can make money. So some of them have a background, some of them have made vaccines before, but others haven't made vaccines. So it's really amazing that they can get into this game so quickly.
Yeah, and you bring up, even just AIDS and polio. I'm going back to 1500. Like there was no vaccine. There wasn't even they didn't even know what it was. And you think about that versus here.
The first vaccine that we think of was 1700s smallpox vaccine. But even then, we didn't know what a virus was. We didn't know what a bacterium was. That didn't happen until the end of the 1800s. So this is all pretty new stuff.
Yeah, I just saw this tweet from Gottlieb. He said, credit to the Lilly team for making substantial at-risk investments in manufacturing for this promising COVID drug. They should be able to supply more than 1 million doses between now and the end of the year. I don't exactly know what it is. Is that the monoclonal antibody? Is that this? Is that the Regeneron thing?
So several companies are doing similar things. Regeneron is one of them. Lilly is another. There are others. And that's good because, they can make 1 million doses by the end of the year. I don't think that's enough to cover many people in the U.S., right? So we need multiple companies doing this. And so that's important.
Yeah, I just want people to be great and just recognize how that's unprecedented, not even close. You, on your podcast the other day, talked about test sensitivity. And I was thinking about this the other day because in San Diego, in Southern California, all of California, in order for the theme parks to open up, Gavin Newsom said in San Diego County, we would need less than 33 new cases a day. Less than 33 new cases of COVID a day. And I was wondering, geez, with the number of tests that we do, I wonder if there's going to be that many just false positives, even if there's actually no COVID. So it just seemed like a really, really low standard with the quality of tests we have today. So anyway, that's why I was thinking about it. But what do we know about the test sensitivity?
Well, it varies according to the test, but you're going to get false positives. So at my university, we had a false positive last week. They shut down the lab, but then the next day they repeated it and it was negative. And they repeated it a third time and it was negative. And so that's a false positive, right? And that's going to happen. And you have to be ready to react. And the best way is to test them very soon with a different test, because you can imagine that the one test didn't work properly that one time. User error, sample mishandling, or something like that. Just repeat it, and you'll get over that. So if a state says we need to have less than 33 new cases, you have to have built into that what you're going to do if you get a positive. You have to test it right away to make sure it is a positive. And then you can get rid of that issue. It's not really a problem because you should not just do once with a positive person.
Yeah, I wonder if they have that. I wonder if they have that as a part of their metric, two tests. And that's what the president did, my understanding, right? Like Thursday night, he took, whatever the day was, he took one test and it came back positive, and then they waited a little while to get the results of a second test. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there you have someone where it really matters, right? So you have to make sure. But I think if you're going to base a state opening or not on that, you have to have retesting in place.
Would you say the tests are pretty accurate these days?
Oh,
I guess obviously it depends, but
the tests are great. But of course, when you do, even if you have a 1% error, right? When you're doing millions, that's a problem. So you have to have plans to repeat it for sure.
Okay. You posted a study of looking at people 2 months after symptom onset, who were non-critical, obviously. And what are the results of people months later?
This is a great study. I want people to realize. So These are people who did not have serious COVID. They didn't go to the hospital, and they recovered. Yet 2 months later, they're still tired. They're feeling tired. They have some trouble breathing. Some of them don't have their sense of smell or taste yet. So this is really, they're going to follow up these people to see how long it lasts. But, you know, the message is, even if you have a mild infection, you could have side effects that are going to last for some time, at least 2 months, according to this study.
What kind of side effects are we talking about again? I don't even know what these words are, some of these.
So loss of smell, loss of taste, shortness of breath, and weakness, feeling tired. That's what those words mean.
Yeah, because like anosmia, aguasia, dyspnea, asthenia. Why don't they just say what you said, Professor? This is why we have you on, to dumb it down for us so we can get this. This is a little off topic, Professor, but I was thinking, I was having a conversation yesterday or the other day with someone who he's working on like cancer treatments, a cancer treatment, and they do a lot of testing with mice. And he talked about the limitations of doing tests on mice. I just assumed that, I heard somewhere forever ago that like mice and humans, for whatever reason, are like the same genetically or whatever, right? And so you can do testing. And he's like, no, how did he word it? He said, every vaccine or treatment that's ever worked on a human has worked on a mouse, but not every treatment that works on a mouse works in a human. I asked that to you because do you work with mice, and what are the limitations on working with animals in this quest?
Well, yes, mice are very different from people. So often what you find in mice doesn't apply to people. Nevertheless, we can learn fundamental things in mice because you can do a lot of experiments that you obviously can't do in people. But eventually you have to test them in people. So many vaccines are tested in mice first. They're often tested for toxicity, first of all. How much can you give the mouse before it becomes toxic? And also for how well they work. How do they block infection? And if they look good in a mouse, and sometimes you put another animal in there as well, it could be a hamster or a ferret or a non-human primate, then you test it in people. So in terms of antivirals and vaccines, we have to have a lot of data in animals, and then we go into people. But, cancer therapies can look great in a mouse, but not work in people. Not always, but sometimes that happens. Now, one of the great promising cancer therapies, CAR T-cell therapy, the guy who developed this, he got a Nobel Prize for it. When he first found this in mice, the company said, we're not interested because it's just a mouse and it probably won't work in people. But he persevered and he got it into people and it worked. So you can't be negative just because not everything in a mouse works in a person, but it's a really good reagent. We can make lots of mice. We have all different strains of mice. And yes, we use them in our lab, and we recognize that not everything we find will be applied to people, but eventually we'll know that.
It's amazing that there's any correlation between a mouse and a human.
Well, when you think about it, if you put a virus into a mouse, the mouse makes an immune response, and then you challenge with infection, the mouse is protected. That's the same principle that happens in people, right? And the only difference is whether the mouse is going to respond to the virus or die or whatever. Yes, but yeah, they're quite different from us. But, the closest thing to us is a non-human primate, but they're very expensive, and we'd rather not use those except for very special experiments. We have a saying in my lab, mice lie and monkeys exaggerate.
What does that mean? Mice lie. What does that mean?
Mice lie. They don't always tell you the right thing. And even a monkey, which is very close to us genetically, right? They may not tell us the same thing either. There are many examples where results found in non-human primates don't even match up. So you have to really be careful.
You brought up hamsters. I remember reading about Regeneron, and something about the Regeneron is grown with hamster ovary cells. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, Chinese hamster ovaries, CHO cells.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, duh, come on, Slater, come on. Yes, of course, hamster ovary cells.
So these are cells made years ago. They're not made every week. They're a cell line, which means that they grow forever. They're immortal, right? So someone made these many years ago from Chinese hamster ovaries, and they grow in culture. They're really easy to work with, and you can produce things in them. And that's one of the things that Regeneron used. Yeah, a very common lab cell.
I love the question. Yeah, of course, Slater. Our president got like a minute. Well, last final thoughts, things we got to keep in mind this week.
All right. If you look around the U.S., the numbers are rising. Why is that? I think in part it's because of school reopenings, right? And also the weather is getting chillier in some parts of the country. Here in the Northeast, the numbers are going up. If you look at the overall curve, it's going up. And I think we're in for another wave here because in the winter, these respiratory viruses do a lot better because of the lower temperatures, the lower humidity, and the fact that people tend to stay indoors more in the winter. And we know that's the best way for this virus to transmit. So I want people to brace themselves. We're going to have another round of lots of cases and unfortunately many more deaths. But you can mitigate that by wearing masks and keeping distant from people.
Do you think that wave what percentage will that wave be in cases compared to like the first go when this first happened? Like 50% is high? Do you think it'll be as high, higher?
I think it'll be lower because multiple factors. A lot of people are masking and staying away and so forth, but there's some immunity in the population. So I don't think it will be. Every wave has been lower than the previous one. So I think it'll be lower, but still, people will die, and we don't want that to happen.
Professor Vincent Raccaniello, go to microbe.tv and listen to his podcast. Professor, an honor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. See you next time.
Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week. I love that. So what is this about, like hamster ovaries? Oh, yeah. Let me tell you everything about hamster ovaries. All right, hearings all day today. We'll report back on the highlights and lowlights tomorrow. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word.